Hello, Joker the Fool here, and welcome to Poll Review. This is going to be the third episode of Poll Review, which I take. I take. I go through 7 of the daily polls, and then go through the results. Talk about why I chose the poll topic I chose, and then I go through what the community said in the replies below. So. Without further ado, we're going to start with Daily Poll 15. Would you buy a Google console? And I can tell you why I chose this topic in that I remember seeing rumors flying around that Google was going to make a console, and I guess it turned out to be not half true. It was completely false because Google unveiled Stadia just about 2 weeks um, after this poll was revealed. And so before then, there was rumors that Google was going to have the streaming service and they were going to ship a console, but they're only shipping the streaming service that you can play on essentially any device. Anything that can run a Chrome browser. They have plans to bring it to mobile and tablets and all that stuff, but we don't really have a lot of details about Stadia. And so this poll topic turned out to be a bit useless in terms of what it actually would be. But so this is just me asking. There's a Google console rumored. Would you buy one? And let's see. There's quite a few options. There's quite a few options here. So, but the most, 35% is I own a PC and other consoles, and I feel satisfied with what I currently have. That's what most people said. So, so most people, they have either a PC or other consoles they feel satisfied with what they have, or, people who just play on consoles, whatever you think about them. Whether you're PC Master Race or your console forever, or you like me and you play both, and, both have their boons and banes, as I'd say. So, very few people, we had 11% of the people saying they'd buy a Google console if it had good exclusives. One person said that they like to collect hardware, and they would just collect Google's consoles. Not they're not one person, I guess, wouldn't buy it because they want to play games on it. They're just doing it because they're hardware collectors, which I can respect. But let's go into the replies. So Zoltor, very active in the daily poll forum in general, said he might buy a Google console if it had good exclusives. Doubtful, but Google's got the money to pull it off and wasn't digital only. However, that's all a big if, mind you. With how Google runs YouTube, I have next to no faith in them running such. Also, let's hope they focus more on single player because they don't know how to handle an online community at all. So, a lot of I went through, with this poll, a lot of people have a lot of spicy things to say about Google, and I can definitely understand that. Google's got I don't want to go too much into it because that's a whole, it's not the point of the series, but a lot of people don't like Google. Let's just leave it at that. So Twidget, also very active in the polls. Also, active in the poll. Fan of this channel, I think. Says his PC scratches all the gaming itches that he gets. The newest console he owns is the Xbox 360e model, which I think was the last Xbox 360, like the Elite model. So it looks a bit like a Xbox one. It's like a black box. The last console he bought for himself was Wii. Not sure. I'm not damn sure not buying a console designed by Diversity Hires from Google. So once again, a lot of going through this, a lot of people are going to be like, I don't want to buy Google. They're spying me. They collect my data. They're biased against certain things, and I definitely do not want to. I want to make this a political video, but I'm just So that's Twitch's take. I'm not going to say anything else about it other than it's very negative against Google, and I can definitely understand the sentiment that some of the Google like that. You don't want to buy something about you don't want to buy a product designed by people who don't know anything about the product, but with Stadia, a lot of the people who are working on it are pretty experienced in the industry. I don't know too much about Phil Morrison, but the woman who's running the Stadia studio, she worked for Ubisoft and she worked for EA as well. So she's been around, and she worked on a game called Mighty Quest for Epic Loot with Ubisoft, and I really like that game a lot. So I'm not going to say that game streaming is necessarily the future, but um, there's some hope in terms of there being good content on Stadia, and that Stadia studio making interesting things. If it'll be, it's all dependent on the technology and how good it is with Google. Which, I mean, with all the online infrastructure they have, it's definitely an interesting thing. So Hyperweasel says he'd be interested to see what they bring to this table. Same with companies like Samsung. However, he'd most likely not buy one. Hyperweasel's pretty active in the Daily Poll, and I know him. I know him personally. Well, not like in real life, but like an online friend. Like I've actually talked to him. Voice chat and all that stuff. So let's see. So I wouldn't buy. Yeah. So Baron Baldrick says he wouldn't buy a Google console or Yahoo console, and this is it's like a tech review thing. I'm probably not going to play it in the interest of keeping this video under under. Hopefully, I can keep this video under like an hour. Let's see. This is just yeah. So Beowulf, no, he wouldn't. Yeah, very very short and sweet and to the point. So Merlin's got a very long comment here, and I said, I think 2 videos ago, I encourage long comments, but I'm going to try and summarize this. So he says he hopes it flops. Google has way too much market share in the tech world as it is, and that's very agreeable. Merlin is very right on the money. Google's got YouTube is the most visited site in the world. You've got a search engine, which I mean that alone is probably it is the most used search engine, and then they've got Android, which is they've got the Android operating system, and that's millions of mobile phones that Google controls the operating system for. They don't control the hardware for it, but so you got that, and then you've got well, you had Google Plus, but nobody used Google Plus. But there's just a whole bunch of stuff. And, oh yeah, you got AdSense and AdWords. So if you want to monetize, your website, through ads, you're usually using Google AdSense, and unless you have a naughty website, and then you're using something like Traffic Biz or something like that. I forget what the service is called. Let's see. So he's saying an undercut and buy exclusive like no wonders. So he said he thought a new non-Japanese console would be needed to shake up the market and make get more Japanese games to come to the West or rest of the world. It's no longer the case. A lot of Japanese games are just getting localized in general. As I think the market's becoming more established. It's becoming less of a niche in the West. I mean, I think the Sky 5 sold more copies in the West than it did in Japan. So Merlin's definitely right in terms of that. Japanese gaming, it's definitely not as big, not as popular percentage-wise as it is in Japan as it is in the West. But the market's sizable enough where most games that people want to come out of Japan do. With, of course, some notable exceptions. You've got let's see. I think Seiken Densetsu has never come over to Japan. It's like one of the Secret Mana games. Mother 3. It's never been localized, but that's... Let's see. So Microsoft... Yeah, so he's saying... So Merlin goes on to say that Microsoft failed at breaking into Japan because... the Xbox wasn't... the Xbox, he's saying that the Duke was too big for... for the Japanese... saying the controller was too big for the average Japanese person, which I think that would be true, but... I want to get into that. So, but a lot of the content that Microsoft made wasn't necessarily it was very Western, and I don't think the Japanese market really stuck to that. And also, I think Xbox means like Death Box in Japan, so it's unappealing to the Japanese market. But yeah, so basically, so that's so this is him saying that Microsoft failed at breaking into Japan. So Merlin's definitely has a Japanese market in mind when he's talking about this comment. But Merlin says, but Google, Christ Almighty, it's so big that they had to make a parent company. So he's talking about Alphabet, where they made a parent company. and then that's how they restructured things in order so they could expand more. They've got the biggest video sharing website, the most used search engine. They've got home assistants. You know, they're battling with Alexa. They've got they've got their own cell phones that they make. They have a cell phone operating system that's like literally billions of devices are running some sort of Google operating system. You know, whether it's Android phone, Chrome Home device, not home, Google Home devices, Chromecast or Chromebooks. So there's a lot of stuff that Google, runs their software on, and when they run their software on it, they collect data from you, and they also show you ads as well. So that's nice. So remember, they were screwing around in space, but this goes off topic, talking about how Google is doing a lot of stuff. So he says, yeah, we'll see how it goes. He's happy with the free console setup. Well, it looks like it's going to remain that way, but Google is definitely going to go into the streaming side of gaming, which, I mean, I knew that they were going to do something, because I tested out Project Stream with Assassin's Creed Odyssey. I got access. I played about 3 hours or so through Project Stream, and I played Assassin's Creed Odyssey, which, I mean, Assassin's Creed Odyssey in itself, I don't think it's basically just Assassin's Creed Origins in Greece, which is fine, but nothing too interesting. But it was a decent experience. It definitely wasn't as bad as I thought it was going to be, but I had connection issues, and I got a pretty good internet connection, and then also stuff like artifacting and low frame rates are pretty common. What only worked, it worked pretty well in terms of like reading my inputs and everything. Like, sometimes things felt delayed, but it definitely felt like I was reading my inputs, and when it worked, I was able to play the game and actually play the game. And I went through the forums. There are only people who played like 100 hours of the game, so it worked for a lot of people, and that was the beta version. So hopefully when it hits the consumer, full-on level, and it's monetized, however they want to monetize it, whether it's free with ads, whether it's a subscription service, whether you're paying for games individually, I don't know about that, but yeah, sort of, thinking, but hopefully it'll be better than that, which I think, but it's definitely going to be dependent on your personal internet connection, in which, at least in the States, a lot of people don't have that good of an internet in terms of like upload speeds, download speeds, and also your ping times, and then you have to think about data caps and how that turns into it. But with a lot of people, it's like Mad Mummy, also pretty active in the poll, says he doesn't want a console at all. The only reason he reluctantly owns a PlayStation 4 is for the exclusive. So so basically, most people like, I don't like this, or there's like very few. So why? So Thomas Active says, why would I? Don't know what it is or what games it has. Unlikely to beat the PC in graphics or Nintendo and Sony exclusive games. So why bother? So I think that's a good one. So I spent a lot of time on this poll. So let's move on to Daily Poll 16. Do you buy microtransactions? And I can tell you, this one I did specifically is because microtransactions has become such a big sticking point in the industry. The corporate suits of the industry are obsessed with microtransactions. They love them because this is what makes the balance sheets look good. This is what gets investors to buy in, because if you can say I rub my face a lot. Okay, but off topic. But when these big corporations, gaming corporations like Activision, Blizzard, EA, Take-Two, when they do their quarterly financial reports and their fiscal year reports, they always there's a number. It's net booking numbers, and that includes these microtransactions, and I think it also includes subscription services. I'm not the most experience with it, but if you have a high net bookings number, that means you're doing a lot of means you're selling a lot of microtransactions and such. So I think that's what the net booking numbers include. So that's what they're trying to drive up. They're trying to drive up profits. So it's basically, how many microtransactions can you sell, and it's how many monthly active users do whatever platforms you have. So those are the two things that investors are really looking at with the industry in terms of, do I want to invest in Take-Two, Activision, etc., or not? Because this quarter, or Grand Theft Auto Online had 10 million monthly active users, and it made a billion, or maybe like $1 billion. I'm just giving out numbers, and if those are good, then it's good. Then it's not. It's not. But investors are really, really overzealous with how much money they think that they can get out of the industry. Because, I mean, you've seen investors pull out of Activision stock um, when Black Ops 4 sold $500 million worth of sales, the same as Call of Duty World War II, which makes it one of the best weekend entertainment launches in history. But it wasn't up from last year, so they think of that as stagnation, and stagnation's bad. So it doesn't matter if a company's stable. If a company isn't growing, then it's bad. And microtransactions are the way that companies are trying to grow, but they're doing it in a way where the integrity of the game is ruined. And since I just had my rant on this, let's see what you got. Let's see what the poll results. So 77 people said if a game not 77, but 77 people voted. 10% said if a game has microtransactions, he won't play it. Or nobody said I buy microtransactions every game that I own. So about a quarter of you guys said I only buy microtransactions in free-to-play games. 40%, the most, will occasionally buy microtransactions in paid and free-to-play games. This is one I voted on. I've bought too many Overwatch loot boxes. I'm not going to buy them anymore. And I mentioned that I played Adventure Communist in the last poll review, and I probably spent like 15-ish bucks on that game. So that's basically the only microtransactions that I've ever really spent money on. One person said they only buy microtransactions in paid games, and 16 people, 20%, said they don't buy microtransactions in any game that has them. So, Beloved Westham says he paid 99 cents to get rid of ads and Plague Inc. I think I bought microtransactions in Fallout Shelter as well. So he gave $5 for Fallout Shelter after putting 200 hours in that game. Fallout Shelter, I got a bit of fun with Fallout Shelter, but it's mostly just to kill time before Fallout 4 came out for me. So figured he owed them, which is pretty good. I've got 200 hours of game, putting $5 in it is definitely reasonable. Plus, I only did that to give me an edge in a hardcore vault. In Heroes of Storm, bought stim packs for years back. So basically, Beloved Westham. Let's see. Yeah, Beloved Westham participated in Daily Poll before. I read one of his past poll. I read one of his replies in one of the past in the first video, I think. I can't speak today. Some games have awful currency boost packs like $99 SimCity Builder or Rise of Civilizations. And if I was actually wanting to spend $100 on something, I'd sooner go out for a nice seafood dinner. So basically, saying that you spend some things that it seems like only free-to-play games and only like small transactions after games that he was really passionate about. So yeah, Bolta putting some input saying I don't buy any microtransactions in games that have them. So I added that option because of Bolta. So thank you very much to Bolta. So I think so Bolta's saying he'll play these games as long as he's having fun, but he won't want to buy into the microtransaction systems, which I think that's a good portion of the industry, but it's a good portion of the player base. But there is also a huge portion of the player base that'll religiously buy stuff like Overwatch loot boxes and the Madden packs or the FIFA cards or or the 2K virtual currency or whatever it is. So Ragnarok says, shame there is an option. Used to buy microtransactions before I realized I had a gambling problem. Which, yeah, in hindsight, that is a good thing because I could definitely see, with the loot boxes in Overwatch, I got myself into a bit of a hole with that. So he said he spent $1,600 USD on League of Legends random skin gifts and nearly $500 on Overwatch loot boxes. Now, I'll buy less than 20 if the game was free and I enjoyed it. And Ragnarok, definitely, it seems to be a victim of some of the really bad practices in the industry because I've spent money into Overwatch loot box system, and I can definitely say that it's gambling. It is definitely gambling. The ESRB can say that it's not gambling because you get something every time, but you don't get what you want every time. So if you're buying an Overwatch loot box and you're buying a bunch, for one of the events that's a limited amount of time, you're doing it because every time I do it to get a certain skin, and when I'm not getting that certain skin, I feel that disappointment, right? And I want to, Activision wants you to, probably manipulating in ways where you spend $20 and you still don't get it, and you're like, oh, if I only spend 10 more bucks, I'll probably get it, and then, more and more money, and then it just snowballs. So I'll definitely like that. This is Borger just saying. Borger just saying that I needed to put the option that I did put in. So, that's definitely. So if you guys have input like any of the polls saying that some of the options are wrong, it happens all the time where I'll post a poll and then it doesn't have an option that the community wants. So if you just say that, and I'll usually agree with that because I'm not always correct about things, and I'm willing to admit to my mistakes and fix them. But so I'm very thankful that I have a community of people who are willing to give me the valuable input. So Mad Mommy says he never buys microtransactions. There is no such option. I'll buy a game with cosmetic micro transactions in them, but chances are I won't buy them. The times I do buy them when I've put many hours in the game, so much so I feel that the game is worth it and deserving of me throwing money at it in hope of a sequel, just as good, if not better. Okay, so Irritable Squid is saying, it's got to be cosmetic and it's got to be a game that I actually care about. And I played Overwatch for 300 hours, so I can and that's the one game I spent the most amount of money on in terms of something like loot boxes. I definitely want loot boxes to die because it is manipulative, and it's manipulative in a way to, get money from you. It is definitely gambling. It's the industry is a lot worse for it. That's Battlefront 2 definitely got into hot water. Like Battlefront 2's monetization was so bad that laws were passed against it. The industry got regulated because of how scummy Battlefront 2 was, and Overwatch is it's essentially just got a cosmetic version of the same system in my mind. But yeah, so that's basically, so, if I go any longer, I'll just, start ranting about microtransactions and how bad they are for gamers, and the industry in the long run, because it's ruining the integrity of games, which isn't a good thing. But let's move on to the 17th daily poll. So I did this when Devil May Cry 5 launched. I just got Devil May Cry 5 a few days ago. And I like it. It's a pretty good game. It reminds me of Bayonetta, which I know Devil May Cry was. Let me rephrase it. Bayonetta was inspired by Devil May Cry, and I can definitely see that in Devil May Cry 5. And I know if you're a longtime fans of the franchise, Devil May Cry 5 is my first Devil May Cry game. I based this off of a poll that I did way back in December before there was even before the first Daily Poll series, the one that Acerbo did, not me. And I basically asked, I did the same poll, but I asked, is God of War 2018 a good direction for the franchise? And I think most people said yes on that, of people who had played both. But you definitely had people who said that no, and so there was definitely it was a pretty interesting poll. So I asked, is Devil May Cry 5 a good direction for the franchise? And I know that Devil May Cry 5 is more of a return to the older style of games, and that the one before was a new direction for the franchise. So this makes the options a bit weirder, but I think the largest one, of the people who've played both, I'm assuming, said that DMC5 is a better direction for the franchise. And but the one that got the most is I haven't played any DMC games. So most people haven't played Devil. Most people on this forum haven't. Most people who've voted on this have not played Devil May Cry. Two people, they only played DMC5 and liked it. 10 people said they only played the old games and liked them, and 3 people said they only played the old games and did not like them, and 6 people said both the old DMC games and DMC5 are good in their own way. So this is a bit weird considering that DMC5 is more of a return to form for the franchise instead of it being a new direction like God of War was, which I based this poll on. So I acknowledge that this was a bit of a weird poll for me to do in terms of how I worded things. So, I could have said, was Devil May Cry was it an actual return to form for the franchise? Probably would have been the better thing, and said, I played the old games, yes it was, or, so. So Kishimi says he played through a lot of Devil May Cry 4. It was a pretty fun game. It got stuck on a part and spent a few days trying to toil with it, but then my buddy wanted his game back. Wish they would put DMC on the Switch. I think those games would do well portable. So I'm assuming he's meaning like the older DMC games. Bolta says he never played DMC games, but played the other ones in the genre, Bayonetta, God of War. I can say hack and slash is not for me. It's just boring. So Bolta doesn't like that style of game. I have to. Well, I guess it's taste, but I personally love Bayonetta, and I think Devil May Cry is a fun game. But to each their own. Let's see. So Ethan Saito says, "Why is the devil crying?" And Devil May Cry is, I guess, it's the demon hunting service. And from what I understand, there's 3 main characters, and there's V, Nero, and Dante, and they run this service called Devil May Cry where they hunt demons, and that's why the game's called Devil May Cry, because it's about the Devil May Cry crew, I think. So that from what little I played of DMC5, that's what I understand of it. So Twitch says he's never played any of them. He said he watched his son play DMC, but the game never interested him enough to play it. Same goes for God of War and Bayonetta. I mean, you could definitely say the older God of War games are more like Bayonetta and Devil May Cry, but God of War 2018 is nothing like Bayonetta or Devil May Cry. God of War 2018 is a slower action adventure game with pretty good action RPG elements, whereas Bayonetta and Devil May Cry are just action games that have skill unlocks essentially. And Bayonetta's got skill unlocks. So it's, I wouldn't call it RPG. They're not really RPGs, and they don't really have as many, like God of War's got a more solid RPG system than Devil May Cry or Bayonetta do. So I would say God of War is an action adventure game, and then Devil May Cry and Bayonetta are just action games, as the way I see it. Because God of War is an open world. I'm talking about the new God of War games. I haven't played the older ones, but with the older God of War, with newer God of War, it's an action adventure game that has this pretty decent open world. It's kind of like Wind Waker's open world in terms of like you've got the center lake and then the branching linear areas like like your average 3D Zelda game before Twilight Princess. That's what I would have to compare it to. So, Golden Fox says he hasn't played any of the DMC games to date, nor have I heard what's going on with the series at the moment, so his opinion doesn't really count much for me, but coming off of Assassin's Creed Odyssey, it's developed pretty strong theories about drastic changes to basic mechanics of long-running and loved franchises. New mechanics are always welcome, but new ideas should be pursued. But there's an ambiguous point somewhere along the lines where enough changes can remove what people love about the franchise. And I think I'll leave it there in the interest of time. So, but thanks for the long comment, Golden Fox. I appreciate it. Thomas JCG says it definitely is. Other than the Nouveau, which I have some performance issues running the game on Steam, which it's probably because of the Nouveau. They did everything right. The visuals are amazing. I definitely have to agree with that. Animation is fluid and responsive. Gameplay is pretty good, and getting combos feels a lot easier. Devil May Cry 4 is an excellent game. The previous best in the franchise, DMC, just improved anything. Magville responds 3 is better than 4. Yeah, so Magville is the one that really pointed me out to this being poorly worded. So DMC5 isn't that different from the previous games, unlike Slow of War. Mocking the the new God of War, saying it's a much slower paced game. So let's see. So Estrella says doesn't like the aesthetic approach compared to the PS3 version. Looks like the video game version of a pop metal band might still get on sale though, because gameplay is all that matters. Well, Estrella, I've played Bayonetta, and I can say it feels really good to play gameplay wise, and I do think the story's a bit. I do think the story is fun. Like the characters definitely feel like they're pretty fun. Although I have this weird issue with the game on the PC version where the audio and the cutscenes are out of sync, and it feels really weird to watch. Like it removes like everything. Like for my enjoyment, the cutscenes are removed because of the audio issue. I don't know how to fix it, but let's move on to the 18th daily poll. And on this day, um, but I think I was on the day before. Yeah, it was on the day before this one. The Master Chief Collection got announced for PC, and it's coming to Steam, which I am really, really excited for. I played a lot of the Halo games back in the day. Halo, yeah, the original Halo. Halo Combat Evolved was the first FPS game I ever played. I played that on the 360 with backwards compatibility, so I'm a big fan of Halo. I played every Halo game, every mainline Halo game. I played Halo 1, I played Halo 2, I've played Halo 3, I've played 4, I've played Reach, and unfortunately I've played 5. So this one's a bit of a long one, but most people, well, not most, but 35% of people said that they played Halo on the Xbox, the 360, or the Xbox One, and they'll buy the Master Chief Collection. 6 people said, they played on the Xbox, any Xbox system. They won't buy Master Chief Collection. Let's see. So yeah, 7 people. What's interesting to me is that 7 people own the Master Chief Collection. Oh yeah, that's 7. But 2 people already own Halo MCC and will buy it on PC, and 7 people own Halo MCC and will not buy it on PC. Some people said never played Halo, not interested in buying it. Never played Halo, but interested in buying it. 4 people. Probably, I imagine a lot of Steam users are going to fall into the group of, they've never played Halo, but they're interested in checking it out. As definitely since it's coming to Steam. So, Dubsy, I've seen him in a few daily polls. He says he's got on the X, already free on Game Pass. Interested to see some hi-fi PC footage, so still cool to see the whole series come to PC, which I've got to agree. So Icicle, only got 3 plus. It's probably the only daily poll he's posted on. Never been an Xbox guy, so never played the series. Not a fan of FPSs, so might force myself to play it to not feel left out. Well, I mean, I'm not sure if Icicle ever watched this video, but I've done this before, but I mean, if you're doing something just so you don't feel left out, I wouldn't recommend doing it. So if you're not a fan of FPS games, then Halo doesn't do anything to make you a fan of FPS games. The your stories in Halo are really good, but it's not like, the story in Halo is really good. A lot of the lore is really good. So if you like stuff like that and you're not a fan of FPSs, I would check it out. But if you absolutely hate FPS games, I don't think Halo does anything that's going to make you like FPS games. That's just how I see it. So Ethan Saito says, I'll buy it unless what I've heard that it requires live. It's true. Yeah, it came to PC Escape, stuff like that, and Microsoft not dragging me screaming back into that pit by using nostalgia as bait. Well, it does need Xbox Live, but it doesn't need gold. You just need to make the account, and hopefully, while having needing another account to play a game, you need a Steam account and an Xbox Live account to play one game isn't the best thing. Hopefully that enables some form of crossplay. It would be pretty cool to do co-op campaign where you've got one guy, where your friends playing the Xbox One version of the Master Chief Collection and then you're playing the PC version of it. That would be pretty cool. Or you could even do multiplayer matches with your friends. But that might be a bit unbalanced because one person's playing mouse and keyboard, the other's playing with an Xbox controller. But the option for crossplay to be there would be amazing. Let's see. So Thomas JCG says, I love the franchise, so this would be a day one buy for me unless they really screw it up. And yeah, I gotta agree with Thomas. I'm definitely going to buy into this. And the only way I can really see it screwing them up is if the PC release gets bugged to hell. Which, I mean, if you look at the original state that the Master Chief Collection was launched on the Xbox One, there is definitely concern there in terms of the Master Chief Collection not running stably on PC, since it's like 5 or 6 unique engines that they had to get onto a single game and switch between them and all the multiplayer stuff. So it's not definitely. So I respect that it's challenging, but I mean, if you're offering a product that people have to buy into, you need to make it functional. That's just how it works. So yeah, Tomologen says, "Where's the? I haven't played Halo, but I might buy it as an option. I don't. Yeah, I don't have that one. Yeah. So I think I said interested in buying it is. So I think that essentially is the same thing. But oh yeah. So I quoted him and I said I added. So yeah, this is Thomas. Yeah, Thomas said that I've had too many options, but yeah, I'm trying to keep all the polls that I do. So I think yeah, the next daily poll I'm going to do is 34, and I'm trying to stick to a 5 poll options max list. So Thomas is saying to stuff like I'm interested, not interested, don't know yet. And let people explain in the comments, which is definitely a good thing. So yeah, so like I said, as we get to the more current polls, the options are going to thin out a bit, and it's going to be easier to go over the results. So let's see. So Hyperweasel said interested to give me games like Reach. If they give games like Reach any type of graphics upgrade for PC, even with just having higher res textures, I think would be nice. Well, Hyperweasels and again, I definitely think Reach will get graphics updates, considering the game came out in 2010 on the 360. It still looks great. I was watching Chris Raygun stream on Twitch like about a week or so ago, and it still looks really, really good. But it could definitely do with running at a slightly higher resolution and upping the assets a little bit, which I'm sure they'll do that. They'll remaster the visuals. So just do an upres, which I think was what I think they'd be best off doing that, because the art style for the Halo games are just so good that if you just take those original assets, up their resolution, and then you render the game out at 1080p or 4K or whatever resolution you want to. I think it would be good. So yeah, Merlin. Just hope it isn't a glitch-infested mess. Even the campaigns for MCC for Xbox One had glitches, thus making the original game a superior experience still. So yeah. Merlin is basically saying that the one fear I have is just it not having bugs. That's basically my only thing with Master Chief Collection on PC, is that I don't want it to be buggy, and that's my only thing that's going to really impede my enjoyment, is if it's a buggy game. Which I'm probably just going to buy it regardless, and then just hope that if it's buggy, they just patch it later. And I wouldn't recommend to do that, but I'm just such a big fan of Halo that I just have to have the game, and I'm just going to be willing to buy it. But yeah, I think I've spent enough time on that. So let's go on to the 19th daily poll. Now this one's really simple. Do you prefer Japanese RPGs or Western RPGs? And I think this is one of the poll topics that I just popped in my head and thought it'd be an interesting thing to do. So about a quarter said they prefer the Western RPGs. About 30% said they prefer JRPGs. 2 people said they only play JRPGs. Same amount said they only play Western. And then the most chosen one was, I like both Western RPGs and JRPGs equally. So Ethan Saro says he only likes JRPGs if I can understand the text on the screen. And yeah, Ethan Saro brings up a good point. A lot of JRPGs, a lot of Japanese games, especially the older ones, have never been localized, and that's definitely a big problem. So Zoltor active in the polls, like I've said before, says JRPGs all the way. Western RPGs are a disgrace to game design. If there's any game design design at all going on there to begin with, the lack of systems lead them to be boring as hell. Rather it's the combat, meaningful character customization, or just things in general. So he's saying all the Western RPGs are based off of D&D, a video game version of Dungeons and Dragons, but then they don't build on it. Could also hate on Western RPGs. We're always being basically action based, but them being action based isn't the issue here. There's no so he's saying I guess he's saying that Western RPGs aren't as complex as JRPGs, and that's the whole thing. And there's definitely, especially Bethesda's really dumbed down. I played over 200 hours of Fallout 4, and I like it a lot, but it's definitely a pretty simplified RPG experience where, like, something like Persona 5 has got its, Persona 5, Dragon Quest. It's just simple, like, basic design for a JRPG, but the story and the choices that you have to make in combat really, really shine through in terms of just, like, that simple JRPG formula. It's definitely not for everybody, but, if you're in that niche, then you'll definitely agree with me that the JRPG formula is really good when it's done right, and so I agree with Zoltor. I definitely think my second favorite game ever made is a JRPG, so I would say more biased to JRPGs, but I do, like I said, play for over 200 hours of Fallout 4, so I do think there are good Western RPGs. Even if Fallout 4 has its flaws, I still like it a lot. So Hyperweasel depends on the game. I like some Western RPGs and I like some JRPGs, so I don't really care to stick with one or the other as long as I can find enjoyment out of the game. And so I think Hyperweasel's got the best one. Yeah, so Baltus says, easiest poll for him. Absolutely adores JRPGs. Way more focused on a good story with related characters and also focused on gameplay. I gotta agree with this one. And, a game like with Persona, the gameplay and the story, they really feed into each other because there are story cutscenes that in a game like Persona 5, and this isn't true with every JRPG, but in Persona 5, where you're having story moments, and those story moments are actively improving. They'll change the gameplay, make it different. Stuff like Mass Effect, you would do the loyalty mission, and not only does that give you a good story, it changes the gameplay as well. So. So when you make the story and the gameplay feed into each other, that's when you get a really good game. And not a lot of games can. I can't say a lot of games do that, but I think JRPGs. They definitely will have. They definitely even if they don't make the gameplay and the story feed into each other well, they always go for having a story, and they always go for having decent gameplay. So, Hopeless Wombat, I don't see him too much in the daily polls, but he's a pretty active forum member. Says, I think I have to pick JRPGs, like Western RPGs, but I also find systemic choices in them that I hate, like item weight. So, bugger that. JC Thomas says, I like good games, doesn't matter what side of the earth they came from. So yeah. So, and then Baron says, they refer to the style of game and not to the geographical origin. So, yeah. So, a Western team can essentially make a JRPG. But it's just called a JRPG because that style of game originated in Japan. And, something like Dark Souls is definitely... It's definitely a Western style RPG. I mean, most people say that, but I would say, so Western RPGs are... what you think of when a generic RPG, and then most JRPGs are usually turn-based. They're usually very level and item dependent. They clearly have grinding that you need to do. That's essentially it. But it's definitely a bit vague in terms of like what the difference between a Western and JRPG is. But I think it was a pretty interesting poll because most hardcore RPG fans know where to draw the line and what they like. So, but want to move on to Daily Poll 20. When did you play The Division 2? So I did this because in this poll I ended up that I didn't buy The Division 2 and I have no plans to, which is what most people said. But I later ended up buying it for whatever reason. But I think it's a pretty good game. But if you only marginally like looter shooters, you could spend your money on on some of the Borderlands games and probably have just as much fun for cheaper. But if you got some friends, I want to play a Division 2. I hear that it's a great game co-op. I haven't played a co-op myself yet. I haven't really played it all too much. I played like 5 or so hours of it, but the gameplay is really fun. The lore is pretty interesting, and there is definitely a lot of progression that feels pretty satisfying to go through in terms of like skills to unlock, all the perks, and all the armor and items and weapons to unlock, and the gameplay, like the cover shooting is it's top notch in a game. So I haven't had much fun with it as a while, and there's definitely like the cutscenes, you don't really feel invested in them because there's no there's no real you don't have a voice protagonist. The story's pretty shallow because it's sticking to gameplay first and story second. So I just wish that the game had a better story. That's really what the Division 3 needs to do in order for it to be in order for it to go to slightly above average to something that I would be willing to call really stellar. So most people didn't buy Division 2, no plans to. And then one person said they pre-ordered a special edition to play Division 2 on March 12th. And this is what, the crux of the question is, because game developer, the bigger game companies, EA's got their whole Origin Access, and you play it like the week before, to try and get people onto the monthly subscription service. What Ubisoft seems to be doing is that you can play the game 3 days before, just give us $100 and pre-order the game. But, and they also pushed pre-orders hard for the Division 2 because they offer this, if you pre-order Division 2, you would get another game for free. So essentially a 2-for-1 if you pre-order, which is a pretty good deal, but I still wouldn't recommend pre-ordering. And then, 5 people said, I'll wait until after release to buy the Division 2, which, 5 people said, so most people didn't buy the Division 2, no plans to, because I think a lot of people in this forum, they prefer single player games, and looter shooters have become a bit of a genre that people have gotten pretty burnt out on, after Destiny and everything. Division 2 is definitely it's a solid game. It knows what it wants to be, and it's not from Massive is only developed the Division, so it's not from BioWare with Anthem, where most BioWare fans expect to have when they're saying, oh, it's a BioWare game, you expect it to have a really good story with characters you can invest yourselves in and absolutely fall in love with, kind of literally. That wasn't there, so it didn't feel like a BioWare game, whereas Division 2 definitely feels like it's a massive studio Ubisoft game, because that's all that studio has developed, and it's not ruining a studio. It's not super bugged or anything. It's it knows what it wants to be, and it really executes well on that. So, but there's my pseudo review with Division 2. So Berlin says nothing about the first one really grabbed his attention, but I remember how pissed people were with the severe graphical downgrades or false advertising and the insane glitchiness of the game and how it failed to meet expectations for how the game would play. Yeah, I remember the first Division was shown at E3 2013, and it was, one of those games where it's supposed to be like, whoa, man, it's got all these cool graphics, it's going to revolutionize everything, and then it came out 3 years after that. So I just feel like from when it first got revealed to when it was released was too much time for me to ever really care about it. Because I remember watching E3 2013 and thinking, oh man, these games are going to change everything. When, most of it just turned out to be, graphics upgrades. That's really been the whole thing. The industry sort of stagnated with this generation in a lot of ways, especially for the first. It wasn't until 2015 until we started getting games like The Witcher 3 and Bayonetta 2 where we started to see more creative stuff coming out from the 8th generation. Whereas, the Division came out in 2016, so that's after from when I talked about it. But stuff like, Destiny was, more about, it felt like it's more about being pretty and, focusing on multiplayer rather than being, using the hardware to do things that you really couldn't do before. So, that's my whole thing. Just my whole thing with is that I never really could, I really never got excited for the Division because it took 3 years since, well, not about like 2.5 years since it was revealed to actually get the game, which just it was definitely something that's trying to capitalize on the new console hype, instead of standing on its own merits. So Boltus says on to multiplayer first-person shooters and all above co-op ones. Well, Division 2 is a third-person shooter, but I'm assuming that wouldn't. Yeah, I think he says, it's a third-person game. It wouldn't make a difference to him. So he thinks that Battle Royale is the best type of multiplayer shooter game because you don't need a headset. So There you go. So Iber Weasel says he would wait to see if it's any good after starting to play for about a week. Get reviews. Schizo went over some of his polls replies in the past. Says it's an online looter shooter, all aspects of which would indicate that I'll never play it. The closest it'll get is to watching a May play if I ever go around to his place in the 3-month window that the game may or may not hold its attention. And him being on the other side of the planet would suggest I won't go anytime soon. So there you go. So Temulsion says he played 230 hours in the first one, and there's no way I want to do more of that. Just ends up running the same thing and spice it up with killing world bosses on the cooldown over and over again. I don't expect Division 2 to go away from those mechanics as in it going away from being a looter shooter with bullet sponge enemies. So I can definitely see that. With Division 2, I'll probably put a decent amount of time into it, especially with, some definitely co-op, but I can understand you played over 200 hours of the first one. You just would feel you would be like, you really want to do more of that. And it's the whole thing with me and like when Destiny 3 comes out, I don't know. I've played 30. I haven't played as much as Temulsions has, but Destiny. I don't think Destiny 3 is going to do anything to make me want to spend it to do like 30 hours. I don't want to play 30 more hours of Destiny. I don't want to play like 30 more seconds of Destiny, to be honest. So I can definitely see where Temulsion's coming with that. So since most people are like not interested in it because it's a looter shooter and it's an online game. So let's go on to the last one, and this is another one that just popped into my head. So I don't have any specific reason for doing it, but. Daily Poll 21, do you play sports games? And I said, and the one that, I think, it popped into my head, and the reason, it popped in my head is because, yes, EA and 2K ruining the integrity of the latest releases for the almighty microtransaction money, which I ranted on earlier in this video, so I'm not going to get into that again. I got asked, do you play sports games or not? When I say sports games, I mean, your staples, your Maddens, your FIFAs, your 2K, the 2K sports games, nothing really arcadey. Actual sports games that are trying to be realistic type sports games. So, most people have either never played any sports game, or they used to play sports games but don't anymore. Which is me. I played some baseball games on the 360, and that's about it. So Ethan, when I want to play sports, I go outside. Everyone says it's Mario Tennis on the Game Boy sports game or an RPG. Also, does Tony Hawk's Pro Skater count as a sports game? If so, played the crap out of them. Sadly, we'll never get games like that series ever again. He's certain of it, but I'd be more than happy to be wrong. So he said skateboarding was an early fad. So he's talking about the Tony Hawk Pro Skater games, which I have a really passionate fan base, but skateboarding was a bit for my time when it was really at its peak. It was like 80s, and when it started in the 80s, and then it sort of petered out by the early 2000s. So Baron Baldrick says he's played Dirt, which is a racing game, many times over the years, but I understand what you mean. I play more sports games if they weren't designed for fans of those sports. So I guess he's saying that they're super basic, but sports games really are just designed for the money. EA and 2K, if you look at how those games were designed and structured, they were structured to get money. That's basically it. With 2K doing stuff like you have to buy the cosmetic item before you get to see it, and the cosmetic item is paid for with currency that you can buy with real money. It's all manipulative and everything. And if you look at like the FIFA drop rates for like characters, like worse than a mobile game, like a full price game has a worse drop rate for the loot boxes for a character that's being available for like 10 days. You can't get scummier than that. I mean, they might as well just come up and say, "Oh, you want this special character? Give us like $100 for it," because it's essentially what they're saying. But they're just being really sneaky about it, and that's what angers me the most. And then you got Andrew Wilson will lay off 350 people and say, "We make great games, guys." Get out of here. So Star Magician, pretty active in the polls. Definitely the later polls, but he's an active forum member. I've seen him quite a few times in these in the replies of these polls. He says, "I don't play them anymore. I used to love them. I used to love the more goofy ones like NFL Blitz and SSX, as well as Tony Hawk, but I have no interest in them now, kind of like real sports." So Zoltar says, back in the old days, sports games were actually good. I used to play them, but as the industry evolved, not only didn't sports games follow suit, but got worse. He stopped. It's so pathetic that the best baseball game ever made were on the NES and the SNES, for example. Hell, the last time any actual sports games were good was NFL 2K on the Dreamcast. I think that's what he's saying. People praise the newer NBA 2K games all the time these days. I guess they're better than other sports games. Yeah, what should be the best part of the game and what adds to most of the replay value is so badly riddled with microtransactions. Said mode is completely unplayable. In any case, no matter how you look at it, sports games aren't worth playing these days. Yeah, so I think Zoltar was hitting on that. What I was saying is that a lot of sports games are just made for the microtransactions money. That's essentially all I can say. Like, I don't play these anymore, but Madden and FIFA, they've really stagnated in game design. So they're just cranking out the same game. They've got a fan base that'll just buy it for the $60 every year, and they'll also buy a good amount of the microtransactions, and that's what they do. That's they're just happy making money off of it. They're not they're fine with it not being a good game. They're fine with it being a profitable game. Bolton says he used to play a lot of FIFA and NBA Live in the 90s, and a lot of couch multiplayer. I think Pro Evolution Soccer during his university, but nowadays couldn't care less about those series that launch the same game every year just to milk their customer. So that's the whole thing. So Mike, I think talked about he was talking about one of his replies in one of the earlier episodes. Says, quoted Zoltar's post, which I just read. It says, good assessment. Mostly agrees. Enjoys playing the older games, though. Such a shame everything has to be ruined by microtransactions. And when I hear FIFA 19 revolves around opening virtual packs of players and actually playing the game, which sucks apparently. The last FIFA game played was 10 years ago. So, yeah, I could go on, but I think you get the idea. So this has been been 56 minutes. So my hopes of this being a short episode of Poll Review have been completely dashed. But so hopefully, if you watch this video all the way through, good on you. It's not something that most people do with most YouTube videos. One day I'll be able to get a format that makes it shorter. But I'm going to sign off now. This has been Poll Review, and I'll see you in the next video.
You've been searching all along, confessing while alone and on, without a clue, without a sign, without grasping it.